I think what you're talking about, right, where you meant to parent in one way and something else came out of your mouth, right? That is something you learned. Like, you learned that somewhere. And in general, in parenting, it's not that our kids trigger us, it's that they reveal our triggers.
Every kid has meltdowns, right? It comes with the territory of being a kid. But what about the parents? Are we allowed to have those? Welcome to Tutors Talks. I'm your host, Jeff McAdam. I'm sure we've all had moments, right? We said something, we did something we wish we could take back. Can we change our reactions, the way we handle those things? Our next guest says yes, but she says in order to move forward as a parent, we may need to look in the past, some of the things that happened to us as kids. She is a clinical psychologist of about 25 years. You might have seen her on Fox, CNN, National Geographic. She's all over the place. It's because she's very knowledgeable on parenting and psychology, and she's got the personal experience too. A mom of 4, maybe 5 children. We're going to get into it, but please welcome to the show, Dr. Robyn Koslowitz. Hi, Dr. Robyn.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. Super excited to be here.
Of course. Listen, you caught my eye. I was looking for a guest to talk a little bit about psychology when it comes to what I thought it was going to be like children. How do we prepare our children mentally? But then I stumbled on your TED Talk from just back in December, and it was fascinating. You actually address the parent to get to the kids. And this topic, what it was about was post-traumatic parenting, I think is the way it's worded. I thought it was fascinating. I want to get into it, but I also want to talk just a little bit about your background, what makes you qualified. You are a mom, is that right, Dr. Robyn?
I am a mom. I am a clinical child psychologist. I am right now in that position of raising some smaller kids while also having like college age and adult children, which gives me a certain perspective on, how it turns out in the end, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like when your adult children come back and want a relationship with you, that's a real testament to parenting. And which is, I think, what gave me the confidence to write the book. Like, I didn't write a parenting book until I had some adult kids. I think we all sometimes have imposter syndrome when you're a parent and you're writing about and talking about parenting. I'm sure you can relate. Like, parenting is one of those things that you can't just say, nailed it.
Totally. Yeah. And did I speak out of turn? You have four children, 5 children. What are the age ranges? What are we talking about?
I actually have 9 children. My oldest ones are adults. So I have, I guess, 5 adult kids now. Wow. And then I am actively raising 4 kids. Okay. Got it.
So the four kids are the younger ones. That's I think what I was honing in on. First of all, congratulations, 9 children, and it's still out here thriving. I have 2, and I admire people who can do more than 2. So congratulations. Well, you're certainly qualified. Thanks for being on the show. We'll jump into it with this. I have a clip that I want to play. I feel like I'm hosting like the Tonight Show, where let's show the clip. I want to show the clip. Because the line that kind of resonated in me when it came to the post-traumatic parenting was that children are kind of a mirror of who we are in many aspects. Yes. So if I can, let me cue this up real fast to play it.
So many post-traumatic parents say to me, what kind of a parent am I? What's wrong with me? How can I let my kids trigger me? Don't I love them? Like, why would my kid trigger me if I love them? And I have really good news. Your kids don't trigger you. Your kids reveal your triggers, right? Because now we can figure out the if-then rule. Whatever you did that was not consistent with your values, that thing that you did not want to do and you did anyway, the yelling, the dissociating, the perfectionism, the criticizing, the saying yes when you meant to say no, any of those things, all of that is not you. It's your trauma app activating before you get to parent. So understand that, because your kids don't trigger you. They reveal your triggers. And that's good news, because we have to reveal it to heal it. Now that we know our triggers, we can do something about them.
I thought it was super fascinating, and I didn't mean to just totally jump into the subject matter, but that was the part that kind of stood out to me the most, and I think it resonated with me because I am like I'm sure so many parents where it even happened. I think it was yesterday morning. I'm getting my 6 and 4-year-old out the door, and everything's going so well until the very end, and we're getting out in the shoes, or it's the toothbrush, or it's it's something, and it's the asking for it 5 times, and then suddenly I I go to a place that now I don't feel good about myself. I got the rest of the day. I wished I would have ended it on a better note in the morning to feel good about how it went. And it's easy to second guess ourselves, but you hit on all that. Just to rewind. What is post-traumatic parenting? What are you talking about in this TED Talk?
So in this, I think what you're talking about, right, where you meant to parent in one way and something else came out of your mouth, right? That is something you learned. Like you learned that somewhere. And in general in parenting, it's not that our kids trigger us, it's that they reveal our triggers. And I think that's a very important thing, because when you think your kid is triggering you, you think, maybe I don't love my kid. Like, how can I let my kid trigger me? As though triggers are under our conscious control. They're not. But like, if I loved my kid, it wouldn't trigger me. But the truth is that those triggers have been there, and they've been there your whole life, and they've been there, you've learned them through a traumatic experience. And that's why that TEDx talk, I was talking about a trauma app in your brain, which is this idea that when you experience trauma, particularly at a young stage of your life, your brain develops this operating system. And the operating system is a lot of if-then rules. Like, if I feel abandoned, then that's the worst thing in the world, so I need to lash out. If I feel unheard, then I need to get louder. If I feel unheard, then I need to run away and dissociate. Whatever it is, that made sense at the time you learned it, right? And that was a survival tactic for your brain. So let's say people pleasing. Somebody's being bullied, or someone's being criticized by a very harsh parent, and they learn that if they people please, they won't be criticized. That will work. That's a very effective strategy. So if you're a little 9-year-old and your really angry stepdad is coming home and criticizing you, but you rush around and you keep everything calm, that's probably a very smart strategy, because that's not a fear and even matchup, 9-year-old versus angry adult. In adulthood, though, you start thinking the minute you feel a certain stress and a certain feeling of like, not everybody in this room is calm, so you feel the pressure to keep everybody calm, that's your trauma app activating, exercising that if-then rule. So you might be that parent who says, I really want to say no. Like, I need to hold firm. This movie's too scary. It's too late to stay out on a school night. No, that is way too expensive. We are not buying that. That purchase doesn't even make sense. Whatever it is. And then you find yourself saying yes, right? Like, yes just comes out of your mouth. Mm-hmm. Like you're describing in the morning, in some way feeling unheard is feeling triggering. You learned that somewhere, right?
By the way, I feel
if you learned that somewhere,
I feel like I should be reclining on a chair as we talk about this. Please, yeah, this is good. This is helpful for me.
This feels like therapy, right?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, keep going.
Yeah, which is why for a parenting consult, like I almost never, like people say, I want to come to you just for parenting skills, not therapy, which I hear that, and we certainly have parenting classes, but it's almost impossible to talk about your parenting without getting into your own stuff. And that's why I wrote the book. That's why I wrote Post-Traumatic Parenting, because I knew as a young mom who was a clinical child psychologist, I knew that my damage was going to damage my kids. Like, it wasn't possible that my damage wouldn't damage my kids. And I remember just like sort of going to the stacks in the library and looking for research on like the impact of maternal PTSD on babies, and there was nothing. There was just no research. Nobody was talking about it. So all research is research. I just had to do that work. And that's why for me, understanding trauma and understanding parenting are so intertwined, because it's usually parenting that makes us want to undo that trauma app and act differently.
Yeah. So I think it's fair, really interesting stuff. I feel like it's fair to say maybe that everybody has that trauma app. Nobody's immune to it, right? Like, you shouldn't feel guilty about having that.
Yeah. absolutely. And I think almost nobody, escapes into adulthood unscathed, right? We all have an experience that was too big for your brain to metabolize. And that's another thing. People look at trauma as a wound, and they'll sometimes say, this really bad thing happened to me, but I don't know if it qualifies as a trauma. And it's not the headlines of what happened. It's not the details of the story. It's who it happened to, what developmental stage you were in, and whether or not it was too big for your brain to metabolize, whether or not you had support dealing with it. So someone's like, I don't know, I was just bullied, but like nobody, burned me with cigarettes. I wasn't poor. I wasn't, like, my parent wasn't incarcerated, right? Like, and that's true. Those are adverse childhood experiences that are not great for kids. But someone being persistently bullied can really mess with their sense of self, can really make them feel unsafe in the world, can really be too big for their brain to metabolize, and can result in a trauma app. So we don't second guess what created it. We just know that if you're parenting in a way that's inconsistent with your values, and you try really hard to do something else and the something else doesn't happen, chances are that's your trauma app. Like, it's not you, it's your trauma. And that's the way we sort of go backwards into it.
Yeah. And I think you, in the video that you did a great job explaining there, and in the video too, I remember you saying, kids are our mirror, and they also provide a map. Not that you have to have kids to have this map, but I think it could be easy for a lot of parents to get defensive really fast, or shut down, or feel bad about the way they parented. But I think to your point, you can really embrace it. In a way, they are giving you an opportunity to see things that maybe you need to work on, which is not such a bad thing.
Yeah. I feel like for trauma in general, when you have a real trauma app and you have a coping tool that you always use, you're not going to want to change that coping tool because it works for you. If you're a people pleaser, you're just going to continue being a people pleaser. If you're a perfectionist, it's going to be really hard to be imperfect. If you dissociate, you're just going to want to dissociate, right? Because that's what your brain tells you is what you're supposed to do when you're under stress. So you need a really big why in order to undo that. And for many, many people, particularly for the people that I speak to, particularly for me, myself, the why was parenting. Because until parenting, I was just like, I dissociate whenever I'm stressed out. Okay, so what? It's a superpower. It's great. It works for me. I can work for hours on end without noticing time passing. I can block out everything going on around me. I can be on a train and I can just be doing research and not even notice what's going on, which is not necessarily all that safe, but leaving the safety aspect aside, it works for maximizing my use of time. Yeah. I never would have changed if not for my kids.
You obviously developed this trauma app, these built-in kind of walls for a reason. They've served you good in the past. Can both be true at the same time? Can you adapt to be around your children and parenting while also maybe keeping that up somewhere else if it's helping you another, or is it now like your whole life has to change?
I think the key is being conscious of it, right? So being able to say, oh, this thing that I do is happening, like my dissociation is happening, or my panicking is happening, my perfectionism is happening. Is it relevant right now? Do I want this or not? Because you actually start realizing we have much more control over these things than we think. A lot of times I'll have people say to me listen, I'm a yeller, I just yell. When I'm upset, when I'm stressed, I yell. That's what I do. I can't stop. But you're telling me this is harmful to my kids. And it's yelling is one option. Your trauma app activates, it wants you to yell. Got it. But guess what? That's only one option for dealing with your stress. And now you're going to be able to learn other options. And parenting is the best why. I really think we don't change our trauma app until there's a really good why. Sometimes it's something else that isn't parenting. For me, though, it was parenting.
What would you say is the one parenting behavior that you see, a lot of the time that may be as a result of unresolved trauma?
So in the book, I actually have 5 defaults of different post-traumatic parenting types, and they all come from trauma. But it's pretty much whenever you woke up in the morning and your intention was to do X with your kids and Y came out, that's probably trauma. But anything from saying yes when you mean to say no, perfectionism, getting really stressed out, yelling, dissociating and spacing out and not really being present with them. Those are all things that parents judge themselves a lot for. Like parents will judge themselves for being yellers, but that's really a trauma, right? That's something you learned in a moment of trauma. And once you learned it, you have to be able to unlearn it. Yelling can be very effective. If you're really under a lot of threat, yelling for help or yelling for, or yelling to get everyone's attention really works. It's just not great for the developing brains and bodies of little kids. But does it work in other situations? Sure. The idea is you can do something else, right? Sing instead of yell. It will work.
Sing instead of yell. Okay. I do both. I mean, mostly singing. So with 9 kids, what do you think you have? What has been your biggest learning, takeaway?
I think the biggest learning takeaway for me was this idea. I always thought that dissociation, which worked very well for me when I was a child, and I was dealing with such overwhelming trauma that I, detail it in the book. Dissociation made sense for me. Like dissociation was, I could sort of escape into this pink cloud in my brain, and I don't have to feel any stress at all, and it was fabulous. But you can't be a present parent when you dissociate. And I really had to learn, how do I feel my stress, not yell, not lash out, and yet not dissociate either? Like, can I feel my stress and still be me and be present with my kids and not act in a way that's not consistent with my parenting values? And I used to think I couldn't. I used to think that like dissociation was the only way. Like I remember in that TED Talk that you referenced, my son, the reason I really went on this journey was my son, who was 10 years old at the time, said to me, "Mommy, where do you go when you go away behind your eyes?" And I remember, I knew exactly what he was talking about. Like I know I dissociate, but I remember thinking like, what do you want me to do?
You're saying go away behind your eyes, like you're kind of just somewhere else.
Yeah, I'm somewhere else. I'm spacing out. Like I'm answering them. I think it's interesting because when I was a teenager, sometimes my friends would say that, like, why do you space out all of a sudden? And I'd be like, that's me. Like, take me or leave me. Like, that's who I am. Yeah, sometimes I space out. Yeah. It wasn't worth changing. It was just, and my friends mostly took me, right? They were like, okay, that's her. Sometimes she spaces out. But my kids were not going to take me or leave me, right? My kids were going to give me some feedback. And it was scary for them. My son did not like it. But I remember when he started to cry, I remember thinking, like, so what do you want me to do? Like, it was as if he said to me, like, Ma, you're really short, and I need you to be really tall to be my mom, so can you grow a foot? Because you need to be able to dunk a basketball. I was like, but I'm 5 feet tall. Like, I can't do that. Like, you want me to feel my stress? I will yell at you then. I don't want to yell at you. Like, it didn't occur to me that there was an option of remaining present and managing my stress until he asked me that question. And then it was a matter of really learning how to reprogram my trauma app.
And I heard you mention that people ask you all the time, so like you're good now, right? Like, because you're like the expert on this stuff. You got 9 kids. You've got to be good now. Because if you're not good, then none of us are going to be good. But I mean, you can make improvements. You'll never be perfect. Is that the best way to say?
Yes. You'll never be perfect as a parent. And I think that parenting, I think, the fact that you're not perfect is a feature, not a bug. Our kids do need a certain amount of predictable adversity, right? And sometimes you're going to get it wrong, right? Sometimes you're going to tell a kid like, oh yeah, your tummy's a little upset, but go to school anyway. You'll be fine. And then you get that call from the nurse, like your kid threw up, and that horrible feeling of like, that's all my fault, right? Like I set them up to throw up at school because I didn't pick up in the queue. You're going to make a mistake sometimes. You're going to forget to wash the soccer uniform. You're going to forget to fill out the form, right? That those things are going to happen. And that's okay. Right? That's supposed to happen. If you were always perfect, then your kids would expect a perfect world. And the world's not perfect. You have to be able to deal with a certain amount of predictable adversity as long as you repair, right? So as long as when you sit down with your kid and you did mess up, you have that conversation where you say, yeah, I did that. Yeah, I did forget your soccer uniform. Yeah, I did send you to school and you told me you were nauseous and I sent you anyway because I thought it was just schoolitis and turns out you really were sick. And I'm sorry, and what can we do in the future to make sure it doesn't happen again? You can always fix it. Your kids will give you another chance, right? You don't have to be perfect. I think there's this giant myth nowadays that parents have to be perfect. Spend any time on social media, you hear that myth over and over again.
I'm the exception because I am. But I'm kidding. But I hear that you're not the first parenting psychologist that I've heard say that it's good to let your kids know when you screw up. And so in the last 6 months, there's been multiple times where to my 6 and 4-year-old, where I said like, Dad didn't handle that the best way. I'm sorry, I should, or I wanted to do it this way. It is interesting, their reaction too, because it's like they're immediately sympathetic to me. Like, it's
Yeah.
okay, Dad. And it's hugs, and
Right.
it's like, oh, you're one of your dad, of course. Like, we all make mistakes. Yeah, it's well
Yeah.
received, and
It's cute,
and strangely
actually.
makes me feel good too.
Yeah, yeah. Although our kids are not responsible to make us feel better because we're responsible for our own emotions as the adults. But at the same token, there's something to be said for that modeling of, yeah, I'm not perfect and I'm human too. And, nowadays the kids have so much SEL in school and they're learning a lot of these competencies. They'll actually answer you back in that language. Yeah, you flipped your lid. I sometimes flip my lid too. It's like, yeah.
Where'd you
Yup.
hear that? Yeah,
Your
yeah.
emotions got too big for you. Yeah, my emotions did get too big. It's true. And I'm going to get better at managing my big emotions. And then much later we can have the conversation about like, but can you guys contribute to that too? Meaning it's not your fault I yelled at you. I'm the adult. It's my job to not yell at you, right? Like I need to parent consistently with my values. At the same token, if we're running late to the dentist's office and I've called you to the car for the 17th time and you're not coming, the chances of me yelling are getting higher.
Yeah.
And that's going to happen in school with your teacher. That's going to happen in life. So what do you think we can do next time? Still my responsibility. I can't yell. It's true.
Yeah.
And how do we get you to the car? Like, how do we get your screen off and you to the car within the first time instead of the 17th time, so that we're not late to the dentist's office who has this, like, if you're more than 10 minutes late, you must reschedule your appointment kind of situation going on, right? Because one of the jobs of being an adult is we are the frontal lobes, right? It's our job to manage the world for our kids, right? I know that if you don't go to the dentist, you're not going to be very happy when you have a toothache, right? You don't want to go to the dentist. I get it. But I'm the one who has to be like, yeah, but we got to go. I also don't want to go to the dentist. We still have to go to the dentist.
Like you said some really helpful stuff, and I can't help but wonder, we're doing the work now as a parent, to try to fix some of the traumas that we have from when we were younger.
Yeah.
Is there anything we can do to make sure we don't put our own children into these traumas that they one day have to unwind?
So I think first of all, no one's going to escape into adulthood unscathed. So we have to know that not all adversity is traumatic. Sometimes our kids are going to cope with adversity. There's going to be some things about our parenting that don't resonate well with them. But we just spoke about repair, right? You're going to be able to have that conversation with them and repair it and be like, yeah, I could have handled that a little better when you were a kid. Appreciate you telling me that now. What do we do today to handle that? You're always going to be able to do that. The more you open up the door to feedback from your kids and having, emotionally healthy conversations with your kids, you'll be fine. You'll be able to do that. It's because you're not doing the old school, because I'm the parent and I said so, I'm infallible, I don't make mistakes, right? Like, yeah, that probably, in retrospect, that was a mistake. And what do we do now? How do we repair this relationship now? I think the things that traumatize kids most, the kind of parents who ask that question are not doing those things. Right? Like, if you're asking that question, you're probably not beating your kid. You're probably not withholding food as punishment. You're probably not, threatening to dismember them. Like the things that you hear in adulthood. You're probably not drinking and then being a functional alcoholic and then your kids never know which version of you to get, right? The kind of parents who ask that question don't make those mistakes because we're already much more conscious of it. Adversity, though, yeah, it's not traumatic.
Well, and I think to your point, though, it doesn't necessarily have to be such a big thing that we're doing. Maybe it's just little things over time. I wonder. I don't know. I think it's good to be conscious. I think to your point, it's good to remind myself, it's impossible to be perfect. Never be
Yeah.
perfect. I just wonder if while I'm working on myself, is there anything I can be doing in that, in that direction too? Maybe it's.
Well, I'll give you one thing that will give you some data, which is I like to do something called special time with my kids, where once a week, one kid and me, we do something special together, whether that's a board game or going for a drive or, going for a walk or something where, and in those moments, that's when those kind of conversations will come up. That's when the kid will be like, I don't like it when this happens, or when you do that, this really scares me. In other words, you can ask for feedback. But the best place to get that feedback is during this natural kind of shoulder-to-shoulder interaction. We're at the pottery place, painting pottery together, and something's going to come up. It's like any other relationship. You know how you're told, like, you schedule a date night with your significant other. You kind of want to schedule something like that with your kids, because you'll hear it. They'll tell you. They'll say, like, I don't know, Dad, I really don't love being in this soccer team. I feel like the coach criticizes me all the time. That's the time to have that conversation, because maybe that is becoming traumatic, and maybe that has crossed the edge, and you're not going to miss it because they're used to talking to you. It's almost like having that admin meeting of like, let's all check in. How are we doing?
Yeah, that's great. Well, and I wonder, not that you need the constant feedback about yourself, but I'm just wondering if you do a really good job of painting this picture that your children often shine a mirror up for you. Is there something that I can do if your son or daughter don't necessarily give you that feedback in an obvious way? Is it wrong? Is there a right way to be like, what can Daddy do better?
I see nothing wrong with asking for that kind of feedback, right? I see nothing wrong with saying, like, hey, is there anything going on in the family that you don't like? Is there anything that we could do a little better? Is there, anything we can troubleshoot? A lot of times we do that during that uncomfortable interaction. Part of that repair conversation is like, I don't love how mornings go lately. What do you think we can both do to make mornings go a little better? You'd be surprised how good kids are at giving you the advice that you're trying to give them. If we laid out my clothes the night before, we probably wouldn't be scrambling around looking for them or whatever. It's like, oh, that is such a good idea. I'm so glad you suggested it. We're going to leave out the part that I've suggested that to you multiple times, right? Because now it came from you. It suddenly occurred to you. Great. Yeah, those troubleshooting conversations, that's what I mean when I say that those bad parenting interactions, those uncomfortable ones, the ones where you're like, bad parent, what did I do? Those are great because that's troubleshooting. Like, why are we not getting in the car if, like, I called you 17 times? What do we need to do differently to make sure that this doesn't happen again? That's not like a, I need you to absolve me and grant me forgiveness conversation. That's a troubleshooting conversation. How do we make sure this doesn't happen again?
Good. I love it. Well, really, really great points. I think we can take multiple things from this, and I know personally put it to use tomorrow. If people want to follow up, you mentioned you wrote a book on this. We'll drop the link to the TED Talk. Where can they find your book if they're interested?
So the book, I have it here. I can show it to you. It's called Post-Traumatic Parenting, and you can find it pretty much wherever you get books. You could request it at your local bookstore. You can get it on Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, like really wherever you get books. It's also an audiobook that I recorded myself because I think it feels like a conversation then.
Beautiful. Dr. Robyn Koslowitz, thank you so much for being on Tutress Talks, and we'll drop the links to our viewers online. Thanks for being on.
Thanks so much for having me. I really enjoyed the conversation.
You got it.